Hey you guys, it's Enter the Stars, and this is the Book of Enoch, Section 4, The Dream Visions, Chapter 85. Now we just did a video on the bull, and the bull was the zodiac Earth age in which Enoch lived. And in this amazing vision that he has in the Book of Enoch, he describes the family full of bulls. Now we're going to go through this in more detail because I think it warrants it at this point. We now have the keys to unlock the secrets of this passage. And he says, "And after this I saw another dream, and I will show you the whole dream to thee, my son." And Enoch lifted up his voice and spake to his son Methuselah, "To thee, my son, will I speak. Hear my words, incline thine ear to the dream vision of thy father. Before I took the mother Edna, I saw in a vision on my bed, and behold, a bull came forth from the earth, and that bull was white. And after it came forth a heifer, and along with this came forth two bulls, one of them black and the other red." Now I believe these two bulls are Adam and Eve that they're talking about here, and the two that came from them are possibly Cain and Abel. And it says that black bull gored the red one and pursued him over the earth, and thereupon I could no longer see that red bull, so that must be Cain and Abel. But that black bull grew, and that heifer went with him. I saw that many oxen proceeded from him, which resembled and followed him. I believe that is Adam and Eve proliferating and spreading throughout all parts of the earth. Then it says that along with the latter came forth two bulls, one of them black and the other red. And the black bull gored the red one and pursued him over the earth, and thereupon I could no longer see that red bull. But the black bull grew, and that heifer went with him. And I saw that many oxen proceeded from him, which resembled and followed him. And that cow, the first one, went from the presence of that first bull, in order to seek the red bull one, but found him not, and lamented with great lamentation over him, and sought him. And I looked till that first bull came to her and quieted her, and from that time onward she cried no more. And after that she bore another white bull, and after him she bore many bulls and black cows. And I saw in my sleep that white bull likewise grow and become a great white bull, and from him proceeded many white bulls, and they resembled him. So white is good, black is bad, according to this vision that Enoch had. And they began to beget many white bulls, which resembled them, one following the other, many. Now this is where it gets interesting in chapter 86. "And again I saw with mine eyes as I slept, and I saw the heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven." Now here is where the Nephilim enters the scene. The star is the Nephilim. Now follow along here. "And it arose and eat and pastured amongst those oxen, so it mixed its seed with them. And after that I saw the large and black oxen, and behold, they all changed their stalls and pastures, their cattle, and began to live with each other. And again I saw in a vision, and looked toward the heaven, and behold, I saw many stars descend, and cast themselves down from heaven to that first star, and they became bulls amongst those cattle, and pastured with them amongst them. And I looked at them, and saw, and behold, they all let out their privy members like horses, and began to cover the cows of the oxen, and they all became pregnant, and bare elephants." Now this is where it gets really interesting. Elephants, camels, asses, these are all hybrid animals according to the Book of Enoch. Now it is not common knowledge that an elephant or a camel is, but we all know that an ass is. So we can now assume that camels and elephants are hybrids, exactly what it's stating here in the Book of Enoch. "And all the oxen feared them, and were frighted at them, and began to bite with their teeth, and to devour, and to gore with their horns." Now in the Book of Enoch it talks about cannibalism, and that these fallen angels and these Nephilim were actually cannibals. "And they began moreover to devour those oxen, and behold, all the children of the earth began to tremble and quake before them, and flee from them." Then it says in chapter 87, "And I saw how they began to gore each other, and to devour each other, and the earth began to cry aloud. And I raised mine eyes again to heaven, and I saw in a vision, and behold, there came forth from heaven beings who were like white men, And 4 went forth from that place, and 3 with them. And those 3 that had come forth grasped me by my hand and took me up, away from the generations of the earth, and raised me to a lofty place. So this is the transfiguration of Enoch that it's describing here. And showed me a tower raised high above the earth, and all the hills were lower. And one said unto me, Remain here till thou seest everything that befalls those elephants, camels, and asses, and the stars, and the oxen, and all of them. And in 88 it says, And I saw one of those 4 had become forth first. And he seized that first star which had fallen from the heaven, and bound it hand and foot. So this is Azazel being bound and cast into the abyss, which it talks about later in the book of Enoch. Now the abyss was narrow and deep, and horrible and dark. And one of them drew a sword and gave it to those elephants and camels and asses. Then they began to smite each other, and the whole earth quaked because of them. So this is the prophecy that it talks about in the book of Enoch, where God has them kill each other. It's part of their judgment. And as I saw beholding the vision, lo, one of those 4 had become forth stoned from heaven, and gathered, took all the great stars, whose privy members were like those of horses, and bound them all hand and foot, cast them into the abyss of the earth. Then in 89 it says, One of those 4 went to that white bull and instructed him in a secret, without his being terrified. He was born a bull and became a man, and built for himself a great vessel, and dwelt thereon. And 3 bulls dwelt with him in that vessel, and they were covered in. So this is the flood. This is Noah. Noah is this bull. He was born a bull and became a man. And I wonder what that means. But I do know that when Noah was born, according to the book of Enoch, that his eyes glowed, and he looked like an angel. So maybe that is what's being talked about here. And 3 bulls dwelt with him in the vessel, and they were covered in. So those are his sons. And again I raised mine eyes toward heaven, and saw a lofty roof, with 7 water torrents thereon. And those torrents flowed with much water into an enclosure. And I saw again, and behold, fountains were open on the surface of that great enclosure. And that water began to swell and rise upon the surface. And I saw that enclosure, till all its surface was covered with water. And the water, the darkness, and the mist increased upon it. And as I looked at the height of that water, it had risen above the height of that enclosure, and was streaming over that enclosure, and it stood upon the earth. This is the great flood. And all the cattle that were of that enclosure were gathered together. So I saw how they sank and were swallowed up, and perished in that water. But that vessel floated on the water, while all the oxen and the elephants and camels and asses sank to the bottom with all the animals, so that I could no longer see them. They were not able to escape, but perished and sank into the depths. And I saw in the vision till those water torrents were removed from that high roof, and the chasms of the earth were leveled up, and other abysses were open. Then the water began to run into these, till the earth became visible. But the vessel settled on the earth, and the darkness retired, and light appeared. But that white bull, which had become a man, came out of that vessel, and 3 bulls with him. And one of those 3 was like that bull, and one of them was red as blood, and one black. And that white bull departed from them, and they began to bring forth beasts of the field and birds, so that there arose different genera: lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes. This is very interesting, you guys. Squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. And among them was born a white bull, and they began to bite one another. But that white bull was born amongst them, begat a wild ass, and a white bull with it. So the wild ass would be the Nephilim again, and a white bull with it. And the wild asses multiplied. So let's think this through. Born a white bull, and they began to bite one another, but that white bull which was born amongst them begat a wild ass. Now how did the white bull beget a wild ass? It must have been the wife of Ham. But that bull which was born from him begat a black wild boar and a white sheep, and the former begat many boars. That sheep begat 12 sheep, and when those 12 sheep had grown, they gave up one of them to the asses, and those asses again gave up that sheep to the wolves, and that sheep grew up amongst the wolves. Now this is where we're entering the age of Aries. We came from the age of Taurus to the age of Aries, and this matches exactly where we are at in the history of Earth ages. As above, so below. As it's happening in the constellations and the zodiac, it's also happening on the earth, according to the Bible story. And the Lord brought the 11 sheep to live with it and pasture with it among the wolves, and they multiplied and became many flocks of sheep, and the wolves began to fear them. So the wolves are the Nephilim, and they're, in fact, that's where we get the term wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf in a sheep's clothing is a hybrid. Okay, and oppressed them until they destroyed the little ones, and they cast their young into a river of much water. But those sheep began to cry aloud on account of their little ones, and to complain until our Lord. And a sheep which had been saved from the wolves fled and escaped to the wild asses. And I saw the sheep, how they lamented and cried and besought their Lord with all their might, till that Lord of sheep descended at the voice of the sheep from a lofty abode, and came to them and pastured them. That would be Jesus Christ, right? And he called that sheep which had escaped the wolves, and spake with it concerning the wolves, that it should admonish them not to touch the sheep. And the sheep went to the wolves according to the word of the Lord, and another sheep met it, and went with it. And the two went and entered together in the assembly of these wolves, and spake with them, and admonished them not to touch the sheep from henceforth. And thereupon I saw the wolves, and how oppressed the sheep exceeding with all their power. And the sheep cried aloud. So I'm not sure if the wolves are the Nephilim or not, but it certainly sounds that way. The wolves began to make lamentation, but the sheep became quiet, and forthwith ceased to cry out. I saw the sheep till they departed. So this goes on and on, you guys, but this is amazing. So we basically have a story as kind of like a story that Jesus would tell. And we're seeing the full story of what happened. So anyway, you guys, I thought I'd share that with you. Take care and be safe.